Aloha mai kākou, aloha kahiaka. Welcome to our conversation today. We're on the island of Hawaii in the moku of beautiful Hilo. It's a gorgeous day today, right on the slopes of the Wailuku River that was raging just two days ago, more than I've ever seen it. And it's amazing that today it's a calm, beautiful day and how quickly things change. We start off, honoring the aina that we're on as part of our practice of being grounded in who we are as the people of Hawaii. My name is Alapaki Nahalea. I'm really honored to be the host and the moderator for our panel today. I'm going to be a bit of a fangirl while I sit here with these amazing speakers we have. I think you guys are in for a really meaningful conversation with the experience and the ike and the day-to-day hana that this panel brings to this topic. I want to let folks know that due to our recent weather, we had to make a change in our format, not knowing where weather was going to be. We moved from a primarily in-person resource fair approach to primarily Zoom. So thank you to all of you out over the airways for joining us today. And thanks for the couple of folks who are able to still make it and join us on this lovely morning. We also want to acknowledge NOAA for hosting us here at Mokupapapa. It's such a beautiful facility. I want to acknowledge them for opening us with traditional protocol before we started our live event today. And it's such a treasure to see them incorporating that practice into this place that reaches so many of our community, particularly our Opio. With that, why don't we get started by getting to know our amazing panelists a bit. I'll introduce you one at a time and give you a couple minutes to tell us more about who you are, and then we'll get deeper into the conversation in the next phase. So first, I'm tickled to introduce Luka Kanakaole, who I've known his ohana for a long time. Born in Hilo, Hawaii, raised with strong Native Hawaiian values and a deep connection to environment. He earned a bachelor's degree in natural resources and environmental management from the University of Hawaii at Manoa. He has extensive experience working with the local ia, Haleolono, traditional Hawaiian fish pond aquaculture, for those who don't know. Also fishing and working in our native forests. Luka has a comprehensive understanding of managing natural resources. He's fluent in Olelo Hawaii. He is a researcher for the Papaku Makavalu program, which applies traditional Hawaiian knowledge to modern environmental management practices. And he currently works as the communication officer for the Edith Kanakaole Foundation, which operates the KIPA program, a certification program created to help the visitor industry service providers deliver rich experiences that honor the culture, environment, and history of home. Clearly heavy kuleana on your shoulders. Let us know a little bit more about who you are, Luka.
Pretty much, you said it all right there, Alapaki. Aloha, I'm Luka Kanakaole. Thank you guys for having me here. Yes, I work for the Ida Kanakaole Foundation. My background is primarily in Western science, marine biology, and natural resource management. And that's my scholarly background. But before that, I was raised, by my parents who were heavy in malama aina, and hula, and which allowed me to become a practitioner in chanting as well. But knowing learning Western science has allowed me to see how Western science and indigenous science and Papaku Makavalu and what we study, they're both looking at this. Our indigenous science and Western science are all looking at the same resource and the same elements. We're just speaking different languages. So Papaku Makavalu allows us to utilize all of our ike kupuna as a vessel to how we inform and how we manage our aina. By speaking the language of our aina. And so we're not just using our olelo and our oli and our mele as a performance, but it is our thesis. It is how we can recognize the different elements of our aina. So that's kind of mainly what we do. I never thought I'd be working in tourism before. Never even thought about it. But here we are, realizing that realizing that tourism is a big part of our economy and a big part of the impact of our native environment. So how do we better inform that industry to not be an impact but a benefit? to Malama Aina. I'm also from this Aina. I'm from this Aupua Waikea. So again, seeing all of this water, all of this rain, and all of this elemental huli'ia is really, really about what we try to promote, what we try to shift perspectives on how to understand changes and not try to resist the change, but allowing that change to happen and allowing to kind of adapt ourselves and evolve ourselves, just like our kupuna did. And so, yeah, that's kind of mainly our focus at the Kanaka Ole Foundation. And how do we inform that perspectives to not just our own people, but our malihini and the people who live here, who are, whether you're Kanaka Hawaiian or not Hawaiian, you need to be a part of this place in order for this place to thrive. So we try to share that perspective with every kind of, with all of our different programs and all of our different workshops and trainings. I don't know if I talked about me so much as I talked about our work so much, but
And my sense about you and your ohana is just one and the same.
yeah,
You know, what you guys do. And I thank you for the reminder that this is where you and your ohana are from. So welcome home. And I also want to thank you because I was doing an event here and I had referenced this as the Ahupua of Waikea. And someone in the room didn't agree with that. So I was, and so I was researching a little bit, so you confirmed. I'm gonna say, Luca confirmed. This is the Ahupua, so I can feel confident to get Mahalo Nui. So let's move on to our next panelist, Malia Ku'upu, and you're from Sea Salt, Hawaii, the Kona Sea Salt Farm, and we were so privileged to be hosted by you all yesterday, and it was just lovely to be there on that aina, and I was able to meet folks I know from Hilo. It's always nice when you go somewhere and then you can connect with people you have a relationship with. And as we know, Pa'akai is very special in our community, and many of our ohana may have had special ways that they harvested or prepared it growing up. And it plays an important role in ritual and makana, and a critical role in our food, of course. And as with many things, the molelo that underlines Pa'akai can be important as the product itself. We're excited to hear more about that molelo and approach to sharing these stories with visitors for this important resource. And certainly, Malia, learning more about you, your background, and maybe how you came to be part of Kona Sea Salt, Hawaii.
Okay, so aloha. My name is Malia Ku'upu. Well, I'm from Keaukaha. I'm honored to be a part of this dais right here. I know a lot of strong community leaders here. I don't know them personally. I just met them here today. So I've not done this before. This is my first panel, in case you guys didn't know. So my background was primarily social work, with an emphasis on substance abuse, addiction, and recovery, especially for those within our recovery community, within our Hawaiian community. I ended up getting connected to the Kona Salt Farm because Auntie Melanie Kilikuleo, she's my auntie, she had us. So I used to bring these group of guys over from the clean and sober houses, and they used to go over and work the farms and kind of clean up the place. And so that's how I was introduced there. And then hearing Auntie Mel's story, she would share with us, and from there, they asked me to come over and if I wanted to work the farm and learn more about the salt cultivation, the practices. So there, we learn about the history of the area. They teach us a lot of that, and what the cultural significance and importance is to our people. And just, so we're located in Keauhole Point. It's the westernmost point of Hawaii Island. And what we're tapping into is a resource that's 900 years old. So there's this glacier that melted in Greenland with all these minerals, magnesium, potassium, calcium, sodium, sank to the bottom, and it caught a ride on this deep sea underwater current, passing Africa, around South America, and right on our coast. And we're able to access that source because Hualalai Mountain erupted in 1801 and it took the coast out 1 mile. So that water that we tap into, it's full of minerals, magnesium, potassium, calcium, sodium, and it's really good. It's really healing. And that's where we get our salt from. So it's this deep sea salt water. So it was important to me that I share that because when a lot of times when we go into the store and we buy pa'akai, if you turn the package around, you only notice that it's just packed in Hawaii. It contains little or no Hawaiian sea salt. And I feel that if people are placing a Hawaiian tag on a label and saying it's a Hawaiian product, it should be from Hawaii. And so that was one of the things that I've learned about, because it wasn't regulated like Kona, like how Hawaiian coffee, Kona coffee is now. Back in the day, you could put 3 beans in a bag of Colombian and call it 100% Colombian, 100% Kona coffee. Now that it's regulated, you can only put, like, you have to put at least 10% and you can only call it a blend. So we want to head into that direction with our coffee too. I mean, with our salt as well. Sorry guys, just a little bit nervous here. Still yet.
No, not at all.
So, I mean, I feel like, so, and then so with that, it's, you know, we want to have a product that is genuinely Hawaiian, not something that we're getting from China or India and just calling it Hawaiian. I think we've been diluted enough as a culture to have to deal with those kind of things today.
Well, thank you so much for that background about what you're doing right, at Kona Sea Salt. But I also just want to lift up, you know, that your previous work in social work. I think all of us don't have to know all the details to know, you know, that's a courageous work.
Yes.
And can you tell us a little bit about that aspect of your background, like what took you to that? And
So some of my family struggle with addiction. I've had my own addiction issues too, and so it kind of led me to a place where I was working with disadvantaged. They call them at risk populations, yeah. And then in going into that, I was fortunate enough to have a really good leader who was open to my ike and open to my, let's try something different. Let's not just try the Western way. Let's try to incorporate some of our cultures and our values and teach them. And so with that, we was able to link up with like Auntie Rachel Cruz from the Hui. She's amazing and awesome, and she does a lot of substance abuse treatment work within the Hawaiian community. And we got them to the malas and the lo'i and getting connected, because I feel that you have a better understanding of where you're going if you know who you are, where you come from, and you understand your roots.
thank you so much for sharing that. Mahalo. Mahalo. All right. Our next panelist is award-winning Kenneth Aloha Victor, who was born and raised in rural South Kona, where he grew up on his Ohana's coffee farm and cattle ranch, danced tula, and attended Honau Elementary School. While in college now, he created Katie and Associates in Flowers with Aloha, designing and curating specialty events island-wide. And in 2017, he launched his clothing company, Kaua and Hawai, which, speaking of which, unbeknownst to my family, they were fangirling on your products online, talking about the festival on Oahu. So, you know, the designs are made in Hawaii for Hawaii. And he's known for iconic designs such as the mastheads of the old Hawaiian language newspapers from 1834 to 1949, and the 1897 Kue petitions. And is one of the few that continues to manufacture all of his product here at home. He operates the internationally recognized brand from Kona, where he continues to have Kuleana as one of the youngest board members for the Kona Coffee Cultural Festival. And for 18 years, he's been a kumuhula in his hometown of Kailua Kona. He has committed to heighten the practices, philosophies, and traditions of culture through hula and the arts, fostering multi-generational ohana in learning through sense of self, sense of place, and sense of community. Thank you for being with us today.
You know, when people write a biography, sometimes it makes you sound so good, John. Like, wow, is that really me? Simple. My government name is Kenneth Victor. My Hawaiian name is Aloha Pumehana Okala. People, when they think of a kumuhula, they don't realize all the things that we do. We're lawyers, we're doctors, we're surgeons, we're therapists, we're uncles, we're grandpas. We serve every community from wherever the sun can rise and wherever the sun sets. A kumuhula comes in and we just naturally take over, yeah? And we organize. It's our keen ability to just organize. We just like the community organization. And people realize that. So they always ask kumuhulas to do stuff. Can you help us do this? And it gets exhausting because they don't realize that we gotta sleep too. But it's great work and we love to do it. In Kona, it's very different. Our hula communities are very, very different. So you cannot have a life just teaching hula. My real job is I do curriculum development. And so we do curriculum development for all types of indigenous cultures throughout Kona. And that's been a blessing because I get to meet all these different nationalities that I would have never even met before. And so we basically tell their stories through it's basically brown people telling their brown stories. And all we do is we edit, we trademark it, and we put it together, and they're able to distribute it how they want throughout their people. And we don't own any of it. We give it all to them for their history to be told. And I think living in Kona is so different because it's hot all the time. So if you cannot handle the heat, you got to get out of the kitchen. But a lot of people are moving to Kona because it's so beautiful. But it deflects our people, and our people are not able to thrive in Kona because when I walk into stores today, I don't recognize anybody. And I came from the generation where we only had one high school in Kona. So if we didn't know you, you weren't from Kona. And so it's completely different now. But the goal is that we can get people to understand that the host culture is the most important culture because that's why you came here. And to recognize that is the hardest thing for some people, especially in extracting businesses that only want to take everything that we have to offer, but there's no return. So, the context of Olohaina is so important. The context of understanding where you come from and who you are and what you represent is so important. And then for us as practitioners, we are from here, please honor that and be a part of the community. That's the biggest thing. So that's always what I teach through Halau is know who you are, where you come from, know what you represent, and your sense of community is so important. And then the clothing company was just for giggles. It literally was, I was trying to prove that we could still do clothing and make stuff in Hawaii. And it went from just doing Aloha shirts to now 197 different styles, and it's gotten a little bit crazy. It keeps us busy, so I fly to Oahu every week. Our factories are on Oahu, which is getting harder to maintain. But we continue to try, and that was the goal, is that keep it in Hawaii for Hawaii so we know where our money is going. We know the people that we take care of, the people that take care of us, and we keep that community in its own going. So it's been fun. But,
Mahalo, aloha.
Yeah, mahalo.
Mahalo. I'm happy to introduce our next panelist, a person who needs no introduction, Auntie Vicky Ho Takamine. She's a graduate of Kwemena Schools with a BA and an MA in Dance Ethnology from the University of Hawaii. She uniki graduated to the rituals of hula as a kumuhula in 1975 after training under hula master Maiki Ayu Lake, and established her own halau, Puali'i Lima, in 1977. And Vicky is a recognized leader and advocate for Native Hawaiian rights, social justice, and the protection of Hawaii's natural and cultural resources. She served as a lecturer at the University of Hawaii at Manoa and Leeward Community College for over 35 years. Started when you were 10. Yes. And in 2001, she founded the Pa'i Foundation to support and promote Native Hawaiian art and culture. It's a pleasure for us to have you here today. Thank you for joining us.
Iloa. I'm the kupuna on the panel, so mahalo for inviting me. I think it's such an honor for me to be here. I flew in and I was like, wow, it's such a beautiful day in Hilo. It was just so beautiful because, the past couple of days on all of our islands was just cloudy, we need the clouds and the ua, which is because I realized my plants are not as green as they used to be, but my ka'i mahalo nui. I think probably I'm the one that has been in the tourist industry for the longest. So my kumu, I started hula with Auntie Maiki at 10. I was 12, my sister was 10. So we were, just in elementary school when we started hula. And when I graduated, when I was in, I think, junior in high school, she sent me to my first gig. And we greeted the Lurleen and the Matsonia landing at Aloha Tower. Our musician was Uncle Bill Ali'iloa Lincoln. And so little did I know that he wrote half the songs that we're all dancing hula, right? So Uncle Bill and musicians. And then she sent me to the airports to go dance, and was with Auntie Alice Kiavikani Garner, Loyal Garner's mom. And Loyal would come and pull bass. And so her musicians, we greeted the tourists when they landed off the boat and off the planes. And then my real gig she sent me to was at Queen Surf Luau in Waikiki. The MC was Ka'upena Wong. So, this tourism in the 60s, right, was Ka'upenawang. Moke'ale was a musician. We had these, Lena Ala Haile was the vocalist. And I had the privilege of performing with Auntie Mikey at the Moana Hotel. Poor Almeida was a musician, and Auntie Mikey was a solo hula dancer. So those were my experiences of Waikiki. And what I took from that was Hawaiians who were composing Hawaiian songs, who lived the culture, that was sharing their ike and their hula at that time. And then I got asked to run a luau show at Paradise Cove Luau Show many years ago after that. And I started that luau. And we want to tell the story, our story, not have somebody else tell us what to wear and how to do our hula and how to put our shows together. I left Waikiki when some choreographer that was doing a show said, "Oh, can you just do we're auditioning for the show. Can you do one of those step brush puff things?" And I was like, "Excuse me?" I was like, "What is a step brush puff thing?" I was like, and my girlfriend would say, that's okay. But she's a choreographer. She would tell me how to dance. She don't even know hula. She doesn't even know that that's a lele uehe. She doesn't even speak Hawaiian language. Excuse me, we're not dancing for a show like this. And I walked out of the audition. Everybody was like, where are you going? I was like, I'm not dancing for her. You cannot. We have to control our own cultural practices and be able to share our cultural practices from our own lens, from the Oiwi lens, from our na'au. So that's, to me, what was really important. I started Pa'i in 2001 because I went to the convention center and they rolled out their strategic plan titled Kekumu. And the entire board was not Hawaiian. Nobody was on there that was Hawaiian. Yet they used all of our Hawaiian language phrase. And they had one Hawaiian woman that was an advisor to the board. And so I said, excuse me, who of you are Hawaiian? And they're like, And I said, don't raise your hand, sister, because you're token. You don't have a vote. They don't have to listen to you. Unless you have a vote and are sitting at the table, do not consider yourself a part of this. And I said, you use every Hawaiian terminology through this strategic plan, yet you don't know what it means. You have no knowledge of it. And from the basic, from Kekumu, you are not the source. You cannot claim yourself to be the kumu, because you are not the source. None of you up there are the source. And then the entire convention center was built, and not one Native Hawaiian artist was commissioned for artwork in that building. They spent almost $2 million of that, of our state money, my money, and not one Hawaiian was commissioned. So I started Pa'i to serve the needs of our Native Hawaiian artists and our community, to raise the awareness of Native Hawaiian artists and cultural practitioners, to showcase their art, provide them platforms for where they can share, display, sell their artwork. And that's been our mission from 2001. And also to help set policy and to change the culture of all of the organizations. I will say that HTA has changed a lot since then, so thank you for inviting us to be on this panel, because this is why we see now the changes that we can provide input, that we can help change the policies, help change the culture of the organization, and that's really important. So mahalo.
Mahalo, and thank you for all those years of courageous service. Mm-hmm. So that we can be at a table like this today. Mahalo. I hope that the audience sees and feels like when our panelists introduce themselves, it's not about, my title and me, but they talk about, their ohana, their communities, and the causes that they are committed to lifting up, and that's who they are. So appreciate you guys giving us more insights into those communities. Today's series of workshops are really focused on locally small-owned businesses in Hawaii with the goals of building a regenerative and circular economy, increasing local supply chains, and building greater connectivity between segments of the industry. And I like to repeat it because so often we put words on paper and we talk about them, but we never really get down to the nitty-gritty. But what does that really mean? And I think today, and particularly with this panel, there's no one here who has a problem getting down to the nitty-gritty, what we're talking about. And this conversation today is particularly focused on Hawaiian culture and models for how organizations in this space can and should be thinking about their kuleana and how they might approach being intentional around culture in their visitor interactions and products. And I know the folks watching there's a wide spectrum of folks watching, those who maybe feel like they're already practitioners and want to see if there's room for them, from folks who maybe don't feel confident in the space and hopefully are wanting to know, what is their responsibility here. So I think it's an important conversation for us. Thank you, all of us, for being here today, especially our panelists. And so I want to open it up for your reflections on why we're here to talk. Each of you shared a little bit of that in your intros. I think now is a chance for us to dive a little deeper. If you don't mind, if maybe we'll start with you. We'll give our kupuna, we'll give you first voice, first dibs on this topic.
Sure. I like to, I think all of our programs at Pa'i, our goal is to educate the community, not just the tourists, but we want to educate the residents that have moved here, because most of them have been tourists. They are tourists. They were not born of this aina, so they don't know very little. Residents and then people that are working. I went to a restaurant and all of them were like not from here. So, and they all live together in Ohale, so they're working people that are living here but know nothing about our culture. And they come for a job and then they're offered, housing. And I was really curious about that because I was like, we have a whole new generation of residents that are coming in as to be employed here. None of them have any connection to our aina. They don't have any connection to our people. They have no connection to our culture. And so how we engage with not just tourists who then sometimes become residents, and then our local people who have not had the opportunities that all of us have had. Because, my mother worked at the Bishop Museum. She retired from the Bishop Museum. So I thought that was normal growing up and talking story with Kawena Pukui and Pat Bacon and Dr. Emery and, all of these scholars in the museum, and that everybody had that opportunity to go and wander the museum halls and look at all the artifacts and then talk story with all. And it's like, for me, that was normal, right? My grandmother was fluent, Ikaolela Hawaii. She never wanted us to speak Hawaiian language. So I had to go to the university. And she told me, that's not language, that's book language. I was like, yeah, but Tutu, you're not talking to me, okay? So anyway, but my kumu was the one that introduced me to the language through hula. So it's all of those avenues that we have. But what we try to do is bring that to the community. And how we do that is we partner with the Bishop Museum for things. We partner with Royal Hawaiian Center for things so that we bring our programming to those entities that have tourists coming through, that have residents coming through, and kind of target around the times where, like, Kamehameha Day Parade, you got lots of locals coming through. Aloha Week, lots of locals and residents and tourists mix. So we try and pick and choose those times where we can impact. And then we bring our artists to the makeke to provide cultural workshops, to provide Olelo Hawaii, to provide, let's look at we're doing, coming up in September, Kaulana Mahina. We're rolling out our Kaulana Mahina planner for the community. And Kalei is going to come in and do some workshops on, how to kilo. What is that? What is that kilo? How to be observant about the clouds, the things that you see outside. So those are the kinds of things that Pa'i is trying to do. and then bringing our young people out. We just did a presentation on Lili'u by 3 native artists, one who's doing an opera, one who's doing an operetta, and one who's doing a film. So trying to uplift those artists that are in the community. And of course, we do our Mamo fashion show. Have you done a Mamo fashion show yet? You should have to come.
I applied 3 times.
You wouldn't even apply. What do you mean? What do you mean applied?
You have to apply. There's an
There's no
application.
application.
Auntie, there's an application. You fill it out. You pay your fee,
What
and then
fee?
I
There's
got
no
my denial
fee.
letter 3 times.
Are you kidding?
I promise to God. I was gonna tell you about that, but it's okay. No, no, for real. Yeah, there was a process, and then
Application. Where is the fee?
I showed it to you.
Yeah, you better show it to you. I'll talk to you about that. Yeah, so we do our Mamo Wearable Art Show, and this past couple of years, we've had our Mahu Madness show, which was hugely successful. So yeah, look forward for that. It'll be in September of next year.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, and when you're talking about that, not only the tourists you have to show, but the people who live here as well. I think even the local people too,
Yes.
our own Kanaka, like they don't know either. I mean, we're very fortunate to grow up in our communities that we grew up in.
We think it's normal, right?
Yeah,
It's not normal.
It's not normal, and it's extraordinary to kind of see because, the Kipa program came about during COVID when there was very few tourists, but there's still kind of tourists still kind of lurking around, and we're just finished working at our fish pond for the day, just sitting on the road wall, just kind of pauhana a little bit, just looking at the wall. But then there's a bus of tourists came by, and they're like kind of right behind us, pointing at the fish pond. And then this local brother was saying like, "Oh, so this fish pond is an old traditional Hawaiian fish pond built by the Menehunes, and the Menehunes still take care of it today." And kind of looking back, it's like, "Well, I take care of it. What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
So and it's just making sure. So the Kipa program, we partnered up with the county is the information from the tour operators getting out? Is it correct? It's not that what they're saying is wrong. It's just not all the way right. And so so they're getting our Malihini are getting a false image of what Hawaii is. And so I don't want to be a tour operator, but I want to make sure that the tour operators that are working in Hawaii are giving the correct information. So, in partnership with the county, we came up with this program to create a certification for the tour operators. And it's like a 3-day workshop and an intense workshop about kilo and about mele, about oli, and how to dissect all of the information coming from our mele and oli. Because if they're going to operate here, then it better be the right information. And come to find out, you don't need any special license to run a tour operation in Hawaii. I did not know that.
Yeah.
And that blew me away. So, how do we make sure that when people want to do tourism in Hawaii, then the information that you provide to our Malihini is going to be one where they're going to leave with the correct idea of what aloha is, what the correct idea of reciprocity to these islands are, and what their impact is on our islands as well. And so, it's kind of the same, is finding those partnerships, and my grandma Edith, great grandma Edith Kanakole, she would say to teach everybody who wants to learn, Ike Hawaii, but my grandma would say, if they're going to live in Hawaii, make them learn.
Yeah.
And so we have to go out, so we have to devise a plan to kind of get to those tour operators, not even just standing by and hoping they come. We have to go to them and say, hey, this is a certification, this is an incentive to do this, you better do this kind of style.
I think too is sometimes they get hired because they're entertaining
I was just
and
gonna
they're funny and they just want to be entertaining for the tourists, and that's how you get your tips, right?
You can be funny too.
I know, but at least be informative and accurate in what you're sharing. Yeah.
This theme of education, I didn't say one thing real quick.
So just on that, so for myself too, we had the salt farm. We had this leftover salt, and I got into this thing, and then we had the uhaloa there and some noni. I was like, oh, we can just mix this and mix that, and we can sell a salt scrub. And then I went and I stopped and something wasn't sitting right with me, was tugging at my na'au. And so I pulled it on it and I went and I talked to some of the kupunas and they said, you know, sometimes our la'au lapa'au, it's not to sell and it's not be careful who you teach, you know, and so then I got a better understanding. So it is a learning process for me as well to find the pono way to approach these things. So we decided on something else, but it did open it up where maybe you could have like a cultural workshops throughout the year where you would invite these kupuna or these la'au lapa'au to come in and teach them what they want to teach, because you cannot teach everything, you know, and because you don't know the intention of the individual that's taking it away, yeah. And so that was a good learning point for me because we were talking about like, you know, getting certified and knowing what you're talking about and sharing the proper mana'o, yeah. So mahalo, guys.
I think it's important too that while searching for resources to assist your business or assist your life, you gotta ask the questions. You know, like for us, when we grew up, we didn't just go to any beach to swim. We always went to the same beach. Our family always went to the same beaches. We would just combine into that space. Unless we were invited, we would go somewhere else. So sometimes you just gotta observe, wait to be invited, and then ask the questions. And once you get those questions answered, then you do more research. And it's just like in a halal, you teach them one song and they say, okay, go into the first layer of meaning, then the second layer of meaning, then the third meaning. Okay, now how are we gonna make our costuming for this? What kind of layer are we gonna use? And everything has a purpose, an intention, and a reason for everything that we do. And I think more people moving to Hawaii especially needs to understand when you come here to an indigenous culture, you need to acclimate and you need to definitely understand how we live and the reason why you came here. And so like making sure you connect with the right people. But unfortunately, the state doesn't recognize the right people because they don't have certificates of merit. They don't have doctorates. So our la'au lapa'au cannot do anything formal because they have no doctorate certificate. And so how do we apply indigenous medicine, indigenous culture into an area that only wants us if we have a degree? You know, that's the second part. And then so we got to get our degree, right? So we all get our degrees, we all do the same. Now we're too brown for that circle. You know, now, I don't know if that's a good idea. No, this is the only idea. So I think that it's just based upon how people receive the information we're willing to give out. But right, you gotta give it to the right people. But I also think la'au lapa'au works for Hawaiians. You know, my Chinese friend says, "Oh, babes, you cannot drink this tea. It's only for Chinese people." And I was like, "Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. You keep your Chinese tea with your own community. I'll go make the Hawaiian tea for our Hawaiian community." Yeah.
I love so much of what you guys have been sharing, and I want to make a shirt that says "Get them all the way right." I think that's what you said. Yeah, get them all the way right. I guess I also want to lift up this idea of education. Like we understand that people have to get educated, and I appreciated your point, Luca, that that's all of us. You know, a lot of our own kanaka iwi did not get to be in these learning environments, right? That was the norm for other folks. Other folks weren't. And how can we close that gap, you know, now that we have the opportunity? And what strikes me about something you said, Aloha, was, you know, when you're in Kona, you used to recognize everybody. I live right on Wainaku, close to downtown Hilo, and just a while ago, I was walking through downtown Hilo, like for an hour, I didn't see anybody I knew, and I had almost a panic attack. I had to run into Sig shop just to like see folks I know. Like, where am I? So I guess I wanted to dive further into this this concept of like rediscovering our culture, owning it, getting it right all the way, and that you spoke about this a little bit in your intro, right? Like we need those spaces to be Hawaiian, right? And that's another thing you talked about, or Aloha. That's why folks are coming to Hawaii versus other places they can go with climates.
We come here for our people, how we treat people, how we act. But we cannot act so nice if we have no space to grow and thrive. If we cannot plant our plants that we eat, if we cannot survive in the communities that we live, we're gonna move away. And before you know it, you're not gonna have our people here anymore. And then people are gonna realize that this is just like Mexico or Philippines or Tahiti. It's just another place. It's just another beautiful place. But I always say, it's the people that makes the place. Like, I love coming to Hilo because it's a small town. There's always choke places to eat. You know, there's always something different. You know when you come to Hilo, you need to bring rubber boots, rain jacket, and an umbrella. When you come to Kona, you know you need to bring a tank top, shorts, and slippers. We know. But the people who come here don't know. And I think that's the important part. Like, people need to know where they're coming and what they're visiting and who they're being a part of. And that's the education is the biggest part of that.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest educational groups or huis are halau hula, because we teach all of that in our halau. So I look at indigenous leadership coming out of halau, and you look at where our people are and what positions they're in now. It's taken us years to do that, but we also have to teach them that they got to get their degree if we're going to advance them. So like all of us, I mean, I was asked to teach a hula class at Leeward Community College, and I was, I dropped out of school, I got married, I had 3 kids and my baby, and then I got asked, I uniki as kumuhula. And so the po'e kepani that was interviewing me said, oh, you have to have a master's degree to teach at the University of Hawaii system. And I looked at him, I was like, I'm a kumuhula. I have a PhD in hula. I said, and I challenge you to find anybody in the entire university system who's more qualified to teach the hula class than I am. Then he just kind of rolled he says, okay, you're hired. I was like, so we have to advocate for ourselves as well. Advocate for the ike that we have accumulated over time. And we have to acknowledge the ike of the learning that we've done, not necessarily only in the Western system, but those of our kupuna that have passed down the generations through family systems, and acknowledge that knowledge, because you cannot get that knowledge at the university. You're not going to be able to uniki anybody, well, maybe, but I was asked, I was like, no, never. I'm not going to do that at UH. I'm not going to uniki a kumu, because I don't have control over the haumana that they have. Because when you graduate or when you finish from a kumu or a cultural practitioner,
They're
it's
always
like
your resource forever.
Well, not just that. That umbilical cord is never severed. You owe them. You owe the kuleana to that kumu in whatever field of knowledge to be able to carry on that ike in the way that our ancestors have passed it on generations ago. So we owe to those that went before us and accept that kuleana.
And I want to lift up something you talked about, Maria, in your intro, when you just really, really vulnerably shared about your own journey, your ohana's journey that took you to social work. And you said, if I remember correctly, that you found someone that was willing to see your ike and have a more Hawaiian approach, and that made all the difference for you.
So that is also important, but like the support. Somebody that understands your vision, what you're trying to do, what you're trying to get done. And instead of saying like so often these places get funded by, whatever, and they're like, oh, we got to follow these guidelines, we got to adhere to these. And for them to find space in their heart to say, okay, I have faith in what you see. Now let's try to make that happen. That support is very, very important too.
It strikes me because when we talk about this spirit of kuleana, right? Not only receiving ike, but the obligation you have to perpetuate it. And I think you're lifting up the example of what happens to folks when that's severed and broken. And so the reality of that history for Hawaiians, as we're talking about how to incorporate culture into the visitor industry, that's the reality we have to talk about. It has to include all of that, right? So it breaks my heart when a Hawaiian has to be a tour guide and be entertaining to get a job. It doesn't have to be that, right? Yeah. So
The guy called me a manihuna. It's like, I'm not that short.
yeah. It's this context we're talking about, I think, is important as we answering the questions that are coming in now from our audience. And I want to remind folks, if you have questions, please send them in on the Q&A function on the webinar screen. Thank you to those of you who are sending questions in. A lot of them are similar, so I'm going to bulk the first one into this, like, well, how do I start? And there are folks online who are acknowledging that they don't really understand the culture. They want to be respectful. Like, well, where do I start to understand it? Yeah. Thoughts?
I always say to get involved with your community. Find out what's happening in your community, who your community leaders are. See if there's a need for your assistance in anything. You got to dig in before you can dig out. That's how we were taught, you know. Well, it's kind of like when you go to a party, you better kiss every auntie and uncle when you arrive, and you better kiss every auntie and uncle when you leave. You know, there's a protocol to it, and so you also got to make a friend, like make a local friend, like find reason, make a local friend, and learn from them first before you decide, okay, I want to make $1 million business, because I think that you got to gain respect before you receive respect.
I think you volunteer.
Yes, community service.
Volunteer at a lo'i, at a fish pond, at a community food bank, at
Halal fundraiser.
halal fundraiser. You volunteer to support community events and find out where those, like you said, community events that are happening. Show up, learn something about that.
Especially if you live in a certain community, you know what they do. Like,
Yeah.
I'm from Kona. We have our Kona Coffee Culture Festival.
Yeah.
There's 100 events that we have. You can do something. Even if it's picking up rubbish, putting up
Yeah.
a sign, taking down, whatever. There's something that you can offer.
Because in that process, you're going to learn whose kuleana that is and build pilina with that community right there. So I think that's, for me, it's volunteer. Find something you're passionate about or you want to learn about and volunteer. Sign up for a class.
Contribute.
No, I say if you're a local business, can sign up for our newsletter, either kanako'olefoundation.org, for our Kipa announcement. Sorry, I got a plug. No, but our Kipa workshops are designed specifically for tourist operators and tour organizations, whether you're big or small. And we do them twice a year, or I think once a year now. Looks twice a year is a little hard. I think we do it once a year now. But like they said, volunteering. At our fish pond, we have our community work days every month, but we also have like just groups to come in. They pay a small fee that just covers land taxes. Pay a small fee. But they come in big groups, big educational groups. And I guess I was a tour guide for years. I didn't realize it. Bringing in groups to the fish pond to just learn about the local i'a, whether from the Pai'aina, all the way from the continent, from all over the world, they'd come down just to learn about the fish pond and the different water systems and the different fish biology of that place. And they help poo grass, they help rebuild Pai Pohaku, build rock walls, and the experiences that they get from there, and the mele that they hear and the information that they get from there is just so much more rewarding. They walk away with a deeper understanding than they ever would if they were sitting at the hotel drinking Mai Tais. And that's fine too if you want to do that, but you're going to have such a subsurface experience when you come to Hawaii. For me, if I'm going to a place that like say if I'm visiting Japan or whatever, like I want to participate in their practices as well. That's where I'm going to learn the most about their culture. And so I think, if you can find a fish pond, you're gonna want to come back to that same space, and hopefully they walk away with experiences that see how we malama aina, and they can go back to their own aina and try to replicate that. That's our major export is our perspectives on aina.
What strikes me about the responses is there's a difference between being a tourist and being a visitor, and then what we're talking about is building a relationship with a place, right? And when you build relationship with a place, you come back. Like all the goals that we have for our tourism market are increased when that's the experience folks have. My dad worked for United Airlines here in Hilo for decades. And the folks who came in through Hilo and United were friends. Like we knew each other's names, and when he passed, many of them came to his funeral, flew in just for his funeral, right? So it's different perspective on if we just view folks as dollars, if that's what we want them to be, and then that's how they're gonna treat us too, right?
Yeah.
So
I will say too that From my experiences with the people that come to our workshops, our Kipo workshops, people want this information. There's so much organizations that want it. There's a lot of hesitation because there's a lot of people that moved here that started an organization that they want to do more cultural stuff. They're afraid because like, oh, that's not me. I'm afraid. There's a lot of hesitation. That's like, I'm not Hawaiian, so I don't know if I can learn the oli or whatever. But they want to. There's a lot of hesitation. And my grandma says, if you live here, you better learn the oli. You better speak the language of this land. Otherwise, you can bring your own language, your own ideas to this aina and put it on top of this aina, instead of letting the aina be you. Yeah.
When they come and they start to participate, then they accept the kuleana of being responsible for malama the aina and taking care of the resources, taking care of the culture.
And not just here,
And-
like where they go back
wherever.
to. That's important, yeah, perpetuity.
But it also builds value. And the value of that, because we need to build the value of our Hawaiian culture and the value of the things that we ike Hawaii. Because if there's no value to it, then there's no building of the reciprocal relationship that we have, right? So that's part of it.
Bit deeper, because a lot of the way folks are asking the questions about where do I start is what you're saying, Luca. A lot of them have this are expressing an uncertainty, an uncomfortableness, and is it okay? And I like what you're saying, Auntie Vicky. Well, what you started with your grandma. Well, you better learn.
Yeah.
And your point, right, Auntie Vicky, is like, and when you do, then you will be able to be a practitioner of things like kuleana, right? I guess could we dive deeper for the folks in the audience who feel this way? Is there more guidance we can give them?
Yeah, I think that if in order to build that, you need to take a workshop in lauhala weaving to understand the value of the lauhala eke, the purse that you're going to purchase, and be able to pay for the papale lauhala and the amount of money that it costs. When people ask, when us as Hawaiian practitioners, cultural practitioners say, this costs $500, and you're going like, what? Well, try weave this in that tiny weave. You cannot even get to the fan level, okay?
It's kind of it's kind of like poi, yeah? Poi. They sell it for $10 a bag, and people say, it's so expensive. Well, honey, let me tell you, if you bought poi from Milo, it'll be $80 a bag because it's plenty work. It is plenty work, and people don't understand it. It's not just the work of the physical labor, but it's the understanding the patterns, the seasons, the weather, how everything works to make that product be its best.
Yeah.
And now we have all these craft fairs coming up. So many people are taking lauhala classes now, lehulu classes, and they're creating all this product to sell, to be able to share with the world. But the visitor who's coming to see it, they don't understand the amount of years that they learn for it, their kumu learn for it, and their kumu's kumu learn for it. And it's this generational mass of knowledge that gets thrown into their one student, and that student is now making these things available to sell that maybe 3 generations ago they never sold. They just gave it away, or they did. So now there's like this commodity that Hawaii is this gem of the Pacific, but there's a cost. There's a cost, and people need to understand that value.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't just come with a Walmart price tag, like click, click, click. It doesn't. It's not like that.
Squid.
Taking care of aina is a cost too.
Yeah.
I used to work in conservation. I still kind of do, but and a lot of these guys are just turnover. The employment turnover is so bad because these guys can't live off of aina work anymore, conservation work, and so they go into tourism because they make more money that way. So how do we shift that perspective? How do we shift our state dollars, our county dollars, our business dollars into preserving more aina so that these people can, like you said, the gem of the place. Why people come to Hawaii is because of how beautiful this place is. Boy, it's slowly turning into something else now if we don't take care of it.
Well, that's why we need support from, the tourism industry, the reciprocal relationship now. When we say there's a tax on your room tax for all of the tourists that come in, how does that get? And that was one thing that when we championed a long time ago, when they would tax it too, and the Hawaiians were not getting it. I was like, I went to the state ledge for 2 years and I said, I want $1 per room for my organization to support. And they were like, oh no, we already do that. I said, no, how do you do that? Which is how, like now we have funding coming out from HTA to go into cultural practices, to go into Hawaiian things. So this is where that pot of money is coming from. It's coming from the tourist industry, all of because otherwise we were not getting it. How you want us to maintain our beaches, maintain our aina, maintain our Hawaiian cultural practices for tourism. Well, you got to put back into the product. And the kind of product that you put into may not necessarily be, quote, going back to the tourists, but going back to the aina, going back to the water, going back to our natural resources that we need to then produce work for tourism. So that through line has to be, that circle needs to be maintained. You want this, if you want tourism things, you got to put it into the culture. If you want culture, you got to put it into the aina. If you got the aina, you got to put it into the water. You want water, and then, so it's really cyclical. And understanding that process, right? That's understanding that process is how do we collect for those tourists that don't come to the lo'i and don't come to volunteer our community. How do they help us to maintain our beaches, our waters, our oceans, our natural resources? So that has to be, that's where we need to push our legislator, that's where then you get to the political side of it. You got to be there, we have to be on all fronts.
There was a little burst of energy when you talked about, the process and talking about that as a model of regeneration, right? And the processes of our kupuna were regenerative just foundationally. So when we talk about creating a regenerative visitor industry, what I'm hearing you guys talk about is it's not a one-off. You can't take a class. You can't, right? You have to be part of whole processes, and that's what you're both of you are manao about. You got to volunteer. You got to be involved. You talked about it not as a checkbox event. Go do this event. It's be part of a community, and then you'll know the processes in Kona versus Hilo, et cetera. So it's that's really great manao for folks to chew on. If I can go back, because it's related to this issue of value, right? We have to value, and it's both sides, right? The folks who have ike need to value it and be comfortable expecting return in some fashion. And the folks who are asking for it need to price it, need to value it appropriately. Since so much of our ike and talents we gave away, and Malia, you spoke to this, what you went through when you were thinking about selling Lau Lapa'au and talking to kupuna, right? Like what is okay to sell, what is okay isn't to sell. My own observation is we sure have been giving a lot away or charging cheap.
Yeah. Generational trauma.
Yeah. So thoughts about how we value ourselves appropriately in this system.
So we have a group that comes in and practices la'au lapa'au. I mean, they do lomi, not la'au lapa'au, but lomi. And so I open our space for them. Just come, you lomi, you teaching lomi, your practice in our space. And we need places like that for our cultural practitioner and our practitioners, because they have select few, they're not doing it for outsiders. They're doing it for those of them in the community that practice to heal. And it's not, they don't take money. You cannot buy into this workshop. It's by invitation. So those practices are not short of saying kapu, to an invited,
If you know, you know.
a small hui. And so, we need to create those kinds of spaces for that to be able to happen. So when they call and they say, oh, Kumu, can we use our space on these Saturdays? I was like, yes. And I coupled that time and space for them to come. And at the same time, there's no fee for the use of the space. Even though I got to have somebody that opens up for them and closes up for them, some staff person has to be there. And so the staff person is now a Lomi practitioner as well. I said, sister, go and take this class. You want to do that? Yeah, open and close for them. But we need to create spaces in our community and have the freedom to save that for us. There needs to be some things that we keep for us that we're not always giving out. And for those individuals, you have to earn that. That is not something that, yeah, I want to do this. Maybe not. Maybe not for you. That's invitation only. And there is, so people need to respect the fact that we're looking for the next generation of cultural practitioners with the Ike and the Kuleana to our lahui and to our cultural practice. And that is sacred. And don't be maha'oi. Because, sometimes people are maha'oi because they think just because, I have the right. So yeah, there are some things we have to keep for ourselves and we have to reserve for our ohana and those cultural practitioners within our ohana. Well, however you set those parameters for what ohana means to you. So yeah, not everything is for everybody.
Yeah, if I could do a follow-up for those cultural practitioners who are, zooming in and asking themselves, is this a service or practice that I can offer, that I can participate in this economy and help support my family? Do you have any advice for folks in that space? Like, how would they navigate? Is it okay for me to offer?
First, they gotta ask their kumu, who taught them that skill set, and see if their kumu approves of them doing that. Because no matter what, there's got to be Western thinking to cultural practice. Because we do have to survive. We cannot pay our electric bills without a lauhala hat unless we sell that lauhala hat. So I understand that, yes, there has to be some way of, a reciprocation of, I'm gonna make this, you're gonna sell this. But I think first and foremost is talking to the person who taught you that skill set and asking, what do you think? Is my skill set at that level where we can put this out and say, this hat was made by so-and-so who is a student of so-and-so, would you feel proud? I said, and you need that. So it's, I guess, protocol, right? It would be protocol in any way.
Protocol, there's intellectual property rights issues. Yeah. Because for me, that's a real important issue is intellectual property. Whose property is it? And do you have the right to share it? That's what you're getting to the point. Do you have the right to share it? I look at if you look up Ho'oponopono on Facebook and how many people are like collecting for all different kinds. Like it's a big issue. And their practitioner uahala oya. No laila, they feel like they can because they're not from here. They are not from our aina, they are not from our lahui, and they are using that practice as an entree into their own other cultural practice and using our title of Ho'oponopono. So I don't know how we're going to wrangle that.
Kaua certifications and beach weddings. And there's these beach weddings that offer these services: conch shell blower, fire knife dancer, Hawaiian ceremony, a ho'au, and then you look at the person who's performing and you're like, oh, you're from North Carolina and you're doing all these beautiful services. And I went to a wedding, that's why, and I was flabbergasted. Like I was completely out of I ended up leaving because I was so bothered by what this North Carolina transplant came to Hawaii and observed some things on YouTube, got his kahu license, started to do these weddings, is charging $1,400 to do a 30-minute wedding, And then you have all these options, these concierge services. You can add a la carte add-on things to have these weddings. And I'm like, wow.
Oh yeah,
And then they give you a Hawaiian name.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And they do a Hawaiian pule over. So there's these things, cultural appropriation, and like there's so much things wrong with this, but
all of that.
all of it, it's just like, oh. But to the person who's getting married here, they don't know any better. They think that because this service is available online and he has this 5-star review, boom, Yelp certified him.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe somebody should go in there and say, hello, I was attending your wedding and you are totally inappropriate.
I did.
There you go.
Was not received wrong.
Well,
I was blocked.
no, I was gonna say
It's really hard because, like, we have to kind of go through a process on, how we do business now. Is like, what is the monetary value of our ike kupuna? To us, it's priceless, right? And so, okay, but we got to put a monetary value on it, if we want to conduct a business. And that if people see that we're just giving it out for free, then nobody's going to value it.
Or take it seriously.
Yeah, or take it seriously. So we had to, and it was a tough meeting. It was a tough 4 days to create like a cost structure on what our workshops and how our trainings are going to be conducted and how much is that going to go to. So like even like you're saying with your pakai and the poi, you said, it's going to cost $80 when you're coming from me. And that's super valid. And you know what? Those guys that's costing $1,400 for wedding, they're setting a price. So if you want to roll one, it's gonna cost $5,000. We have to set our own price, and that's really difficult to do. And I think asking the kumu too is that I would say start there. And IP, like Auntie was saying, IP is really, really important thing. We have an IP for our methodology, but even when I was doing marine biology work, we used to study in different communities. We used to do surveys in different communities in partnership with UH, and this has been happening for years, where scientists would go in there, work with the community to study their place, and then take their data and publish their data as their own. But that was all the community's data. So like they need data owner, then they create this whole thing where they can have data ownership over what their AINA has been sharing to these scientists. So that's really important. We have to hone in on the ownership of our ike, not just the ike of our kupuna, but the ike from our AINA as well. But yeah, valuing is tough. I wouldn't say it's easy.
I appreciate you sharing that process you guys used to do it. It was tough 4 days.
Yeah.
And you could just see it in your face, like I used it tough 4 days.
Yeah, there was tears for sure.
And these are not like easy conversations, right? Because like, as you guys established, you're going to source to answer these questions, and we know that there's folks who are not taking as rigorous of a path. So my sense is, if we continue to do that work, we put out opportunities like Pa'i Foundation and Keep a Program, then people will now have the choice, and they can then value appropriately by making the right choice. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm going to secure someone who can tell me where this ike comes from, and I understand the process they used to come up with this price. One of the questions we have, Aloha, speaks to your decision, to be made in Hawaii, for Hawaii, and you don't have to be an economist to know that costs you more money to do it that way.
No. It's like I said, it's a hobby. I would never be able to survive off of it. There is some, like for our screen printing is done here, and it's done by hand, and so that company, their rent went up. So they have a large warehouse, and their rent went up 3 times what it used to be. So therefore now our price goes up 3 times what it used to be. So when we first started off, it was just it was simple, it was easy. And as we progressed, we went from 600 yards of fabric for one release to now 4,000 yards. And so it's a 3-month process for us because it's all done by hand. So I have to have a real job, because while I'm waiting for those 3 months, there's a certain amount of money that's sitting and waiting for the development all of our production. It's hard. It's more frustrating because of rents for all of our locations have gone up, so everybody got to raise their price. We're very fortunate that we have great seamstresses that have been working with us from day one that we created Pilina with. That they've literally, I always take them food when we show up. You know, we brighten their room because we come in, we laugh and we giggle, and they're just constantly working. And a couple of our two seamstresses in one of our buildings. There's a building about six of them, and two of them is Chinese, do not speak English at all. But their daughter, who is our sewing contractor, married a Hawaiian boy. And so their kids, Hawaiian Chinese, is also sewing. So, you know, they have an industry that's working for them as a family generationally. But their customs is you just sit and work. Where I come, they're like, Auntie, how are you doing? And they get nervous. They're like, why are you touching me? I'm like, hey, how are you doing today? You know, we bring them food. And so they're having a cultural, I don't know what the word is, like, but they're like, whoa, what's going on? So yeah, culture shock of like, who are these people? But none of the other designers will come in and do that, like bring, you know, like just, so I created Pilina with them. So at any given time, 2 o'clock in the morning, oh my God, I need something done. Boom, it gets done. But if another designer called at 2 o'clock in the morning, they don't answer the phone. So that Pilina that you build with people is super important. For us to like I live in Kona. So I have a production manager on Oahu, so she manages things there. So when all of our products are done, it gets on cargo, it gets sent to Kona, then we process it here, and then it goes onto our website. So we've created a system for us that works. It's not the most financially rewarding system, but I know my product is being made here, and I know that every dollar here stays here. I know that every person that we are affiliated with has ties to living in Hawaii for generations. I know we only have a 6% waste on fabric. I know exactly where our inks are going. Our inks are not being thrown into third world country rivers, you know, going into their communities there. I know exactly what happens when we have leftover ink. It gets sent into a ball, it gets put into a container, that container gets sent back to the manufacturer in the mainland. So everything I know that we do is environmentally sound. Everybody is paid appropriately. We do not have any sweatshops that work for us. There is definite Pilina with what we're doing, and I think that's why I continue to fight the struggle to continue to have it made here in Hawaii. Because I just think that there's just no better way to say, hey, this is made here. Like, this is made in Hawaii. So our tag is made in Hawaii for Hawaii and the world. Yeah, but it's been fun. It's stressful, but it's been fun.
I mean, what you just did is like a master class, right? That you know your margins, you know, I mean, it's just, I know the audience watching knows this, but I just want to speak it into existence because it's a joke, you're saying it's a hobby, but you are demonstrating that people don't have to live the values of extract value from others, right? That your product is increasing value at every step of the chain.
I gotta sleep at night. Like, that's my thing. My grandfather's pure Portuguese and my grandmother's Hawaiian, and I can just hear her, you know, because she taught us how to sew. So I can hear her when we lay out stuff like, you better cut that corner, like you better move that pattern over, save those 2 inches, use that for quilt squares. So that's how I know I have a 6% waste, because when we do our markers and we line it up and we're cutting, if I'm cutting for 250 aloha shirts at one time, I have less than a container of this that's waste. And that is like, I can tell you that's probably about 1,100 yards of fabric, and I literally have one of those small white trash cans, and it's just all bits and pieces because we've cornered every little extra, but not everybody does that, yeah. So I'm super particular because I'm in a hula community. We all talk, and I think of the hula community in everything that I do. Is if one person gets a whiff of it, the text thread starts going, yeah, boom, and send. Everybody knows what's going on. So I look at our trash cans near our factories and whose fabric is being thrown in those trash cans. I'm constantly observant. That's where the kilo comes in. Yeah, you got to pay attention to what's going on. But
it's a business of the art.
Yeah.
It's art. Art is a business, but it's the business of that art that we as Native Hawaiians need to learn the business side of the art, not just the art itself.
This reminds me, Vicky, of the story you in your intro about, you know, the early days of Waikiki and who the musicians were that you were playing, you know, dancing with, and that they were practitioners, right? And so, yeah, and the visitors got that experience. So I guess to your point, right, about the art of the business, is do you have thoughts about where we've come, and can we recapture that? If so, how? I know that's a lot of what Pa'i Foundation is doing.
We have to create for me, it's creating that showcase, creating that opportunity for our master artists to share. So providing them with the platform to share that in a space that is, I think, for us, that we value that, and creating opportunities for them to broaden that perspective. So with, like, for example, for Kale Nu'uhiwa, I've always admired the fishing and the farming calendar that PK, the Prince Kuhio Hawaiian Civic Club, produces. So, and in one of her classes, she had office predictions tied to the moon. And I was like, I need that Ike. So I met with Kale. So last year, we did our Kaulana Mahina planner so that we can, number one, start to build the awareness. And all of us as Hawaiians know this. But when we look at a calendar, it's in the Gregorian calendar, they got 4 weeks. In our Hawaiian calendar, we only get 3 weeks. 3 weeks of 10 days each, one anahulu. Every anahulu has 10 days. And in the Western sense, it's the waxing and the poi poi, the round and the waning. And they all have, kuleana that we know we don't plant on these days, ole nights, and we kind of then take a night off. And it's like, oh, it's an ole day. No more staff meeting today. We'll move the staff meeting. We have to shift our schedule according to the moon because we are not productive on an ole night. I would tell you that nothing gets done on an ole night. Or I'll get up in the middle of the hua, and I was like, I have all of the, and my will say, Auntie Vicky, today is hua. Just like, because I have an idea. Mm-hmm. And they were like, oh no, there she goes again. But we tend to be more productive on days, and you just can look at the plants in your backyard and know that.
You lifted up. It occurs to me many of our practitioners have made a living by going to Japan, right? Like where it seems that our practices are more valued economically, right? And so, and it's so. It also occurs to me, to your point about a lot of our practitioners are coming from hula halau. And it's nice to know that we've had Kaiapuni and Hawaiian Focus Charters also helping to close the Ike Kupuna gap a bit. And do you see a critical mass of folks who have connection to Kuleana and Ike Kupuna, and that we can craft an economy here that values these things appropriately?
So much of our Ike, there are so many, not just Japan, but Mexico.
And Europe now.
And Europe.
And Europe is picking
They're all...
They want a piece of it. But you gotta understand though, in Japan, it's a business.
It's a business.
It's a business. They really don't want to know the gist of it. They just want the choreography. They want you to arrange it, choreograph it, give them a design, because they want to go to a competition. So it's a business for them. And then they create, this is their sensei, there's 4 alaka'is under them, there's 12 alaka'is under them, and each of them go and start a halal in all these different regions. It's a huge system.
Japanese system that's called Iemoto, that they build up and they kako'o the kupuna at the top, right?
So at one given
they want to
time,
be the kumu though.
That kumu
That's
gets
what they
10,000
want.
students.
This is a real question. I appreciate the insights. Is there lessons there for us on how we could create our own economic models that would?
So I have halal in Japan, but I also have a very strict system. And what they do not like, they did not like my system at all, because my system is, I'm going to teach you the way I teach in Hawaii. So you are not a sensei or an alaka'i in my classes, you're a student. What we are going to teach in your halal is what I'm telling you we're going to teach. Because we cannot stop them. I don't care what anybody says. We cannot stop them, because all they're going to do is get rid of you and find the next person who wants to teach them. And so when I first started, I had a lot of sensei, and I carefully weeded them out, because if you weren't going to do it the way I wanted to teach you, then I don't want to put my Ike, my mana, anything into you if you're not going to continue it. So go find somebody else. And so it came to the end where we had about 6 or 7. And I slowly got rid of 2 more, because now I saw where the business practicum was only about money, 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 money. And for a moment, people say, oh, you're a sellout for teaching hula in Japan. And what people don't realize is all that money that we make in Japan from teaching at workshops, we invested back into our own halau. I got a nice halau in Kona. It's a huge bay. We have mirrors. We have carpet. We have stuff that a lot of halaus don't have. Like some halaus don't. They teach at a park, or they teach wherever there's space for them. We are fortunate that the money that we do make in Japan goes directly back to my students. My girls have beautiful costumes because we have that money set on the side for us. So there is an economical boost when we have Japanese students, because they want something from us specifically, and it's to go to a competition and win. And once they get that trophy, they get 50 more students. Then they get it all together, they do it again, they repetitively do it again and again and again, because it's a business. But I told them, if I came to Japan and I took a taiko class, I'm not gonna come to Hawaii and open one taiko school. Like, that's not who I am. But I need you to understand that when I'm gonna come and teach you hula, you're gonna learn everything that I need you to know about that hula. And if you don't like that, you have to go somewhere else. Because I wouldn't want to learn any less about taiko if I went to learn from you than just go bang, 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 tick, 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 bang, bang, tick. Got it? Okay. No, that's not how it works for us. So for us, I got rid of my senseis because I wasn't comfortable with what I knew they were gonna potentially do. So we have strict control of our Japanese students.
This theme, I will, for now, call it, there's a rigor and a process to honor if you want to do things in a really cultural way, not superficial or extractive way. And do you guys have thoughts for the industry as a whole versus like a small business, which is the target, but how can the industry progress to more appropriately value Ike Kupuna and the practitioners of it, so that we can share it with visitors appropriately? Because for our small business folks who want to get into this space, it's going to be one of the ways for them to be successful is if the industry is more open. And I appreciated you, Auntie Vicky, at the beginning, acknowledging the steps HTA has made. Mm-hmm. If we don't acknowledge progress, yeah. Right? Yeah. So, yeah. More of it. Do we have thoughts about,
Yes. I mean, for
I think that our Kanaka are becoming more educated. They're CEOs. They're now sitting at the tables that make decisions. They're now the one leading the forces, and we have to create more associations of the likes of us to get together. Like Chamber of Commerce's, like how they create that kind of stuff. I think we have to do more of that kind of stuff, creating associations, because now you see lawyers and doctors and all these fabulous Kanaka out in you go to
be at the table.
You have to be at the table. You cannot be the one making the leader look beautiful. You got to be the leader now.
For that first HTA board, there's no Hawaiian Kanaka sitting at that table, and nobody in the offices running it. So now with Kalani, Ka'ana'ana, we have, other Native Daniel Naho'opi'i is the interim executive director. So you got Native Hawaiians sitting at the table on the board level as well as in the offices running. That's hopeful for us, so that we have. But not only that, but they're also cultural practitioners. So that's the difference, I think, when we think about that, not just being at the table, but being cultural practitioners that are at the table.
But as we sit at the table, now we hold people accountable.
Yep.
And that's what I think wasn't, we were just in the backgrounds. Now we're at the table holding everybody accountable. Us, everybody, like not just ourselves, but the people that want to be involved. We hold people accountable. Like, what is your reciprocation? What is your perpetuity in this? What's going on? And we hold them to that.
And we need to continue to participate, though, as in ceremony, all of us, to reconnect with we cannot just be in those. We have to commit, when it's the solstice, when it's the equinox, participating in ceremony remember and realign ourselves with cultural practice. You know, I took my staff to Mokawea down to Sand Island for Hi'uwai for a staff meeting, you know, on the equinox. And I was like, I chose this nice, beautiful beach. I said, I went swimming over there. And then I thought there was rubbish in the water. So I went to go get the rubbish. It was a honu that peeped up and looked at me. I was like, oh, hi. So then I said, okay, this is the beach, okay? So we came back, and the day of our staff meeting, Rocky gave birth on that beach. I was like, oh, we have to move now. I went early to go the monk seal. I went early to set up the tent, to kaput a picnic table and everything, and Rocky went and kaput a whole space.
Girl, that's a Hawaii-lana. That's a Hawaii-lana right there.
I was like, okay, let's move down a little bit. Let's go down the beach. You know, I said, I was like, okay, we gotta move beaches. I texted everybody. I was like, you know, we get texts now. Okay, moving down the road. You want to go see Rocky? You can go visit Rocky first and then come down. But yeah. It's those kinds of things that we gotta commit to ceremony, you know, ritual.
No, I wanted to say, so I'm part of, me and my cousin Kaua, we're kind of like this team working with the Hawaii Executive Collaboration. We just had a workshop last month, the Hawaii Soul Revitalization Conference, but all of these CEOs from all over, different banks and different businesses all across Hawaii, we're there to kind of figure out what their impact is on Hawaii and how is it changing. What is their contribution, or what is contribution to the change or to the revitalization. And you know, we did this whole Papaku Makavalu demonstration in front of 200 people. That was crazy.
They're so hungry for that.
Yeah, and they're so hungry for it. Yeah, and it's. And a lot of people ask us, again, you asked the question earlier, and they really love the demonstration and the workshop that they did, but they ask again, how do I start doing this? How do I start doing that? And I said, again, your community is a good way to start, but it's like, when's the last time you planted a kalo in your backyard? Or when's the last time you paid attention to the native trees in your yard? You know, when's the last time you put your foot to the dirt? Yeah. No, yeah, I understand that. But then, you know, come back late, you know, weeks later, I get a phone call from the vice president of First Hawaiian Bank. He says, oh yeah, I've got some kalo growing in my backyard now, you know? Oh, and so, no, knowing that change and just him looking at how that kalo can grow, that starts to change their perspectives on how they look at Aina and what their impact is on Aina. And so we try, and Kaua and I Kaua mostly came up with this idea. It was like, you know, we here in Hawaii, because we live in a, you know, capitalist Western culture or society, we need to change, everything's monetary value, everything's monetary asset. How do we switch the perspective from a monetary asset to an Aina asset? And in valuing in you measuring your wealth based on the health of your Aina that you're living in. And that being the status instead of how much money, how big your house is, you know. And so how do we promote these? Well, again, like you guys are saying, you know, being in these rooms and showcasing, like, when's the last time you put that stuff in your Aina? When's the last time you kilo this part of your river? You know, how many fish are available from your beach that you guys live on? And so making sure that we start rebalancing the monetary asset versus the Aina health asset, and making sure that can be your measure of wealth instead of vice versa. But that's a system change. That's a big, you know.
What's the name of your surf?
Yeah.
Is it pipeline?
yeah. Maybe you should move.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, system change is gonna take a long time. You know, like Israel said.
Well, but what I hear bubbling up throughout is these practices, which are really about these practices in this place in particular. I mean, the practices are universal, but our kupuna learned how to execute them here, right? And that knowledge is valuable for anybody who really wants to live here and be in relationship with place. And when they get introduced to those practices and they can be part of events that do that, that's almost the only way to get it. Would you agree? Like, you can't just read it. You have to experience it.
And I think about, you know, all the people that have had to move away for whatever reasons. And so, how we can engage them and keeping their keiki involved in keeping their ohana coming home. We think about what we can do for those families that have been severed without any, choices. Sometimes they've had no choice. The kids have had no choice. Parents have moved away, but the kids don't have any choice. So how we can keep them coming back by offering workshops and summer programs or fall or spring winter programs. Bring your kids home, engage them in an activity that they can then build relationship with their aina again, and so they can help to maintain that ohana relationship with family members that are here. That's really important. I think that's one of the things that for me is like, I see so many of I watched a family move from Molokai. I was at the airport and the kids were just crying and the cousins were at the fence just crying for their family that was moving. And my heart was just like, I will hanai them, send me those kids, it's like, bring them home, for whatever reason. But yeah, and I was like, I'm hoping that they have the summers to come home with and spend with their ohana for like the 3 months they're on vacation, whatever, I think about that all the time.
A lot of folks who moved away because they can't make it here, they try to deploy the practices of our kupuna in their new place.
Yeah,
They acclimate and they bring those values and sometimes you can't do it here because you got 2 jobs and it's
3 jobs.
yeah.
And a side hustle.
And a side hustle, it's changed and kuleana to care for other folks and volunteer and be on boards and.
But if you observe the ones that move away, when they go to the new place, they find out the other Polynesians in the circle. They get together. They create that feeling of community. They get together for cooking together. They hang out together because our language is the same. We're just in a different location, So it's you can see they're island people.
I met a young man. At the time he was 18, I was in DC. We were doing a presentation. He came up after, 18-year-old young, and you could tell he's, Kanaka friendly. Had never been here, ever.
Huh.
Yeah, and he just shared his longing to just be back. So to your point, right? Like, even if you've been away, even if you were born away, there is a pull to come back to source. Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna ask. I'll ask Malia. I'm gonna ask you a question, and then I'll ask a final question. You guys can all answer. It was really nice being at the salt farm yesterday. Like I said, there were folks from Keaukaha there, which was nice. And I know that when you guys first thought about struggling to make it financially just producing salt, and so the idea came up to, let's do a salt tour.
Right.
And so the people laughed, like, oh, I sound so boring. Nobody wants to come about salt. But that's because they don't know what salt means in our culture, yeah?
Yeah, so when we originally started, we were just doing wholesale salt, and we were just farming evaporating the salt, farming them, and so we would also do this kiave version, kiave smoke version. So it would be smoked with the kiave wood for 48 hours. So we had this black and white salt, and then around the time of COVID, we were getting ready to close our doors. We were like, oh, this is only going to be a month. It'll be over. We all know that wasn't the case, and so that by June of that year, we were getting ready to close our doors, and we called our biggest wholesale buyer, which is Sea Salts of Hawaii by Sandra Gibson. She was in Oahu, and she said, no, wait, let's merge. And so she came in and she took over the place. We cleaned up the place, and then we were continuing to make wholesale salt. And the discussion came up for retail and tours, and they were like, oh, nobody's gonna want to do tours. Nobody's gonna, nobody will be interested in salt. And then so we really got to this place where we created a tour where we speak on the cultural importance of the salt to the Hawaiian people, and we share the mo'olelo of the area, and so now we have full tours every single day, but and so we added on the retail and we added on the tours and foot soaks, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff that we have events down there and stuff too. But it was understanding that importance and just making sure that we had the proper information, making sure that what we're telling people is right and it's legit. And I think that's very important. So education is important to for these small businesses. For us, it's our education, making sure we're pono, culturally competent, and just all in all, just making sure we're pono.
Transparency.
Yeah.
Accountability.
And it's so also with yourself now too, with our lead Sandra, we're able to get to that place where okay, because Malama Aina is a big part of our culture, and so we're zero plastics there, all plant-based, or glass, and we're just trying to really move away from all of that our carbon footprint, and going full solar, and eventually trying to get these greenhouses that would just run off of without the use of fan, or so you don't need the electric and stuff. So
Mokupapa. I also know that you guys donate a percentage to Papahana Mokuakea.
Yeah.
Right. So
1% of our proceeds do go to Papahana Mokuakea. So that's the older Hawaiian islands, and as you all know, in our culture we consider them our kupuna islands, and it's our kuleana to take care of our kupuna. So our part in that is giving 1% of our proceeds back to Papahana Mokuakea, which is the marine biology cleanup for Hawaiian Islands.
I know you said your first time you're nervous, but you're a pro. They're gonna send you all the time now to presentations. So maybe a final question, and we can go down the line. We'll give Auntie Vicky the last word. In your final thoughts, what gives you hope that we really can transform this industry? I'm going to say take it back and make it not just incorporate culture, but it really, when the visitors come here, they're experiencing a place rooted in the values of our people and our aina. So just examples of what gives you hope.
Okay. What gives you hope? I think I've been experiencing it of late. It's just so exhausting to be angry all the time, at tourists and at our visitors and our malihini. And instead, there are lots of people now that are exhausted as well, and that are just kind of just doing the groundwork of just making the aina better for themselves, and people wanting to know, are curious about what it takes to make Hawaii what it is. And so a lot more, I've been seeing since we kind of started this journey to be in the tourist industry, it's a lot more people we see that people are ono for this information, and they just didn't know how to access it. And so a lot more people are kind of creating those access points, and there's a lot of Aloha Aina places, not only you guys Pa'akai, but Lo'eaudem and Hamakua, they have those farms up there, and all these farms, these malas, they gotta do these tourisms on the side, otherwise they don't have that that monetary value. But they're doing it with having all of the correct information, and so they're creating these access points. So we just need to encourage these small movements here and there to start inviting these malihinis in these spaces, because otherwise, Brotherhood from the tour buses that talked about Menehune is going to give those tours. But there are more and more people that are creating these opportunities for malihini to learn about our space in a informational experience and indigenous way, so that people are walking away with a lot more grander perspective of who we are as a people. Again, I'm not a tourist industry guy. We just came up with an idea to work with tour operators, so I have a lot to learn. My background is in science, so I was getting all geeked out about the Greenland waters and the different minerals. I was like, oh yeah, what else? So I was getting geeked out about that. But it is really exciting. Even if a guy like me could get in the tourist industry and try to transform it, that's enough to give me hope, I guess.
Awesome. Mahalo.
So for me, just to see a group of like-minded individuals, you know, and on that same page, and it's funny, and I think Victor covered it too. It's like, it's time to become a leader, or to come into that stage of being a leader than just making the leader look pretty, you know. And so now we have a voice, we have our leo, we're at the table, and just to imua with that, you know, and so that's what gives me the hope. That's what it's like, okay, this one might be different, you know. We're not just listening now, we're actually doing.
I live in Kona, so Kona we're a little bit behind, and so it's great when I have to go to Oahu for business, and I'm surrounded by all my fancy friends, lawyers, doctors, everything, and I see these Hawaiians doing what they're doing, and it inspires me to like, yes, this is where we're going. So that's hope that I see. But I think that if we can get the right social, and I hate to say this, the right social media influencers on spreading the word of what is right. I hate it so much to say it, but the generation now is so social media forensic, like they need it for them to survive. They won't listen to anybody else except what's on social media. So if we can get like the right influencers to continuously perpetuate like things that are just pono, especially on being like a good tourist. Because I even tell my friends, like when they go, are you being a good tourist? Because you guys hate the tourists that come to our land. Are you being a good tourist? Are you being respectful? Are you being regenerative? Are you participating? You know, like what kind of tourist are you? And I think we got to reflect on that. Like we got to be the example is when we go around, we got to be great tourists because that's what we want to see, right? So I think that there's a lot of there's so much just seeing brown people at the tables, seeing all these wonderful leaders that don't give up no matter what. They don't give up, and then they have their staff that's going to take over when they're going to retire, which you know can retire. You know that, Ja. Yeah.
I don't plan on retiring.
Yeah. So I think just seeing where we're going now, that there's a constant forward, you know, the canoes are going forward. Okay, a couple people going backwards, but most of us we're trying to go forward. And I think utilizing what's available to us with technology will help us. Like that's really, yeah, I think.
So what gives me hope is all of you, Bryson back there, you know, Kanoi, Kalani Ka'ana'ana, people in Native Hawaiians, all of the next generation of leaders, you know, my own Haumana that are doing really great work in different fields. That gives me hope. It tells me that as a kumuhula, I laid a foundation of kuleana and responsibility for everyone to go into their own fields of work, whatever you folks decide you want to do, and they bring that ike with them. And I recognize that as looking at, you know, I forget where I was at a meeting, and almost everybody had come out of a halau, some hula background as a foundation. And they were the people that were organizing, they were the people that were speaking, they were the people that was at the head of the table. They had all been, when we looked at who we have influenced, the halau community has influenced, all different halau hula. We've laid a foundation in our own communities to be at a point today and educate and move them through the educational system, the Western system, to get their degrees, to put them at the table, to make those, now we're decision makers. We're part of this decision-making community. To me, that gives me hope, that I'm not having to be like, my student made me, because I call myself the vigilante. So they made me a t-shirt. So you can make my next t-shirt, vigilante, okay?
I love that.
I know. It's like, I was like, okay, I'm gonna trademark this shirt, vigilante. So that me and Auntie Pua and, you know, Hoku, we don't have to be the vigilantes anymore, right? We get the next generation, because if we have to get back out on that street, then you guys have not done your job.
That's a good closing manao right there. Again, thank you to the four of you especially for being here today and sharing your manao and ike and all your experiences. The older I get, the more I realize like time is our most precious asset. And so when you offer it, you know, it's speaking of valuing, right? Thank you so much for your time, the time it took to get here, and the time you invested to have the deep manao to share. I want to thank HTA and HTA for putting this together, and NOAA for hosting us, and OEV TV for all the great work you guys do, and capturing this and perpetuating it. Thank you for the folks who joined us in person and online and on Zoom. It's us all coming together around these conversations that'll help us to move forward. So wishing everybody a wonderful rest of your day. Please stay safe out there, and make sure you love each other and yourself. Oiho, aloha.